Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Musi Gaming here, and today I want to talk to you about Tokugawa Ieyasu, the latest garrison commander that was just released for Rise of Kingdoms for infantry commanders, and why I think that he's not going to be able to stop the rally meta for Attilla Subutai rally meta. Now, both Bai Qi and Tokugawa Ieyasu are kind of halfway. In all honesty, I know this is not a good joke to make nowadays, but I kind of feel like half of their kit is somewhat tariffed by the U.S. government, because when they came into the game and when we saw the announcement about those two skill sets, I think some parts of those skill sets were very good, but then again, the other parts were kind of question mark for me, to be really honest with you. I don't know what you guys all think, but to be fair, Bai Qi will be part of the infantry meta murder ball, no doubt about it. And I think that his first two skills provide so much value that rest of his kit is kind of a bonus. But then again, because that rest of the kit is so conditional, I think it will be hard for us to say that the latest and newest infantry open field commander that is not even here yet won't. It's hard for me to actually say he's going to be the greatest of all time. But Tokugawa Ieyasu, right away when I looked at his kit, I was like, hey, this commander is very suspicious. And let's just go jump into his skill set and why I think that's the case. All right, so Tokugawa Ieyasu. I already looked at his skill set already when he was first released, but then again, let me just go over it one more time. So his first skill, Aoi over Sekigahara, which will deal 2400 damage factor, smite damage, which is nice, to a single target damage. Not nice, but then again, 2400 damage factor smite is just amazing. It's going to be really good. It's going to be better than skill damage. I think everyone agrees to that, right? And then reduce the defense by 10%. 10% nowadays, though, that at least have the decency to bump that up to 20%, 30%. But yeah, 10%, it is what it is. It is what you get. Let's just move on. And then you get a Mighty Shield for 600 damage factor, right? 3000 damage factor total with smite damage and Mighty Shield, and a little bit of sprinkle of defense reduction. Good skill, but I think not good enough of a skill for a commander that's released after after Subutai, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. Let's move on. His second skill, you basically get 30% attack and 10% bonus, 10% defense. 30% attack, 10% defense. That will be almost up all the time. Alright, well, there's not really much to that second skill, so I'll just kind of move on. The third skill, if this commander is a garrison commander, whenever this garrison receives a buff, it has 50% chance to gain a damage absorbing Mighty Shield for 3 seconds. Amazing skill, by the way. It will basically, whenever you basically receive a buff, which will be almost all the time with Tokugawa Bushi, which will give you 30% attack buff refreshing every 4 seconds. So yeah, this will be almost up every skill cycle is what I'm expecting. And 1200 damage factor for Mighty Shield is nice. And Siege of Osaka, whenever this commander's troop launches a basic attack or a counterattack, it has 15% chance to deal 300 damage factor smite damage. 300 though. With cooldown of 10 seconds. In all honesty, I think this skill should have had 2-second, 3-second cooldown, and then I think Tokugawa Ieyasu would have been really, really good commander, but it has a cooldown of 10 seconds. So this will only activate once every skill cycle? Question mark? And it only does 300 damage factor smite damage in a fan. So that means that it's not going to even focus that 300 damage factor into one rally, but there's a potential that can be spread out among 3 different people. So, I think this skill is Probably one of the reasons why I don't think he'll be meta. They're wasting a skill set that is a skill that's pretty much an expertise skill, I think. And that's just pretty much garbage, in my opinion. But it is what it is. It is what he has. Let's just go ahead and move on. His last skill, Nikko Tosho. So, if this commander is a garrison commander, the garrison deals 10% more damage. Amazing. Not gonna argue that that's a bad thing or anything like that. 10% more damage is amazing. And whenever this garrison deals smite damage, you cleanse yourself of slow, poison, exhaustion, normal buff, 25% chance. You'll basically not be debuffed too much with this garrison, period. And it gains 1 stack of Tosho effect for 10 seconds. Each stack increases the garrison's infantry health basically by 5%. It stacks up to 4 times. So this skill right here will give you 10% bonus damage and then 20% infantry health. You can just think of it as like the first couple turns, first dozen of turns, you're not gonna have this, but then again after first couple, fights and skill cycles go by, you will basically have everything stacked up. So you'll have 20% health bonus by infantry. Basically, think of it that way. Now, the problem with this commander, I think, is not really in his kit, but the concept in which that he is in. What I mean by that is because he's a mighty shielder. So that means it will be very difficult for you to actually pair Tokugawa Ieyasu with Hera, because Hera does not focus on doing a lot of damage, but then again, he does a lot of mighty shield too. So for you to not anti-synergize with one another, you kind of have to use Tokugawa Ieyasu with Gorgo. And you lose all the benefits that Hera used to provide. Is the core reason why I think that Tokugawa Ieyasu will not be meta. Now let's just go ahead and jump right into the game and see what Hera does, because Hera does some amazing things that we may not realize already. Alright, so I'm in the game right now. Here's my Hera. He's been doing amazing behind my Eleanor, and let's just see why that's the case. So his first skill, 1200 damage factor of AoE skill that hits up to 5 nearby enemies. That is good. And then this commander's troop gains damage absorbing mighty shield for 1200 damage factor. Good. Okay, so 2400 damage factor of total. Little less than whatever Tokugawa Ieyasu has, but his main power actually does not come from his first skill. And you'll see what I mean in a bit. His second skill gives you 30% health. 30% health. Now, health is the most valuable stats for infantry commanders. So the fact that this skill right here gives you 10% extra health compared to whatever Tokugawa Ieyasu, which is the latest commander that's about to be released, is amazing. But it doesn't stop there. Let's read the rest of this kit. If this commander is serving as a garrison commander, whenever this garrison launches a basic attack, it has 30% chance to gain 30% bonus to counterattack damage. So you'll have 30% counterattack damage for a very long time. It's just crazy. So counterattack damage is very important for garrison, I understand. Let's just go ahead and move on, because his power does not stop there. Passive skill. The commander does 20% more skill damage. Nice. And then whenever this troop uses an active skill, it gains a damage absorbing mighty shield for 3 seconds with 400 damage factor. So he has a mighty shield on top of mighty shield here, which is really, really good. And he also does more skill damage, which will bump up his active skill. Nice. Let's move on to his fourth skill. If this commander is serving as a garrison commander, the garrison gains 15% of defense, 15% attack, which is nice. But the second part of it, if this commander's troop has a shield, whenever it is hit with a basic attack, it has 30% chance to deal extra damage of 1000 damage factor to the attacker. Okay, so all of a sudden, his damage factor for skill damage is actually not bad, with 1200 damage factor here, 1000 damage factor here, and skill damage buff with 20% here. So yeah, his damage factor is actually not bad. On top of that, he does get a lot of stats from his attack and defense buff that he gets. But his true power, the true power of Hera, is actually right here. The Eagle Banner. This commander's troop takes 10% less normal damage. And if this commander's troop contains at least 3 different unit types, which is very easy for you to actually activate this with just having like 1000 archer, 1000 infantry mixed as you just send your garrison out. So this is very easy for you to actually get this buff. The normal damage it takes is reduced by extra 20%. Extra. So this commander on his expertise skill alone will take 30% less normal damage. And what is Atilla Subutai doing in terms of damage? Oh, they don't do any skill damage actually. In fact, this commander, practically by having him in the mix, you can actually have your garrison take 30% less damage from Atilla Subutai, period. And let's just go ahead and jump back in to whatever Tokugawa Ieyasu does, and then let's actually put him side by side and see if it actually makes sense for you to actually replace Heraclius with Tokugawa Ieyasu. Because this doesn't sound good to me. If this commander is going to be taking 30% less damage from Atilla Subutai, it will need a noticeable difference in everything else on Tokugawa Ieyasu's kit to actually be able to replace Hera, right? Because if you're only taking 70% of the damage that you're supposed to receive, the enemy would need to do 50% extra damage on top of that 70% for it to actually do 100% damage, right? So Tokugawa Ieyasu's kit must be massively better than Heraclius. But let's just put them side by side and see like if that's even possible, right? All right. So here is my comparison. So I actually just merged all the mighty shield and skill damage factor because, you know, it's just easier for you to actually look at it. Okay, like let's see it right here. So Heraclius basically does 1600 damage mighty shield buff and 2200 skill damage buff. Okay, that is about what, 3800 damage factor, which is far less, I admit, it's just far less than 4500 damage factor that Tokugawa Ieyasu does. He does 2700 damage factor for smite damage for his active skill, and then the little trigger of AoE stuff that he does at the later part of his kit, and then 1800 mighty shield factor total, right? Okay, I think Tokugawa Ieyasu wins there. No question about it. 20% skill damage, 15% attack, 15% defense. Okay, Tokugawa Ieyasu has 30% attack, 10% defense, 20% health, which all in all is all both actually 60% versus 60%. And in fact, actually, Heraclius actually provides more health, whereas Tokugawa Ieyasu provides more attack. I think in terms of stats, Heraclius probably provides better stats bonus. 20% skill damage buff versus 10% skill damage buff. Okay, I think Tokugawa Ieyasu is better there. But 30% normal damage reduction. In Tokugawa's kit, there's nothing that can actually compare to his 30% normal damage reduction anywhere. So this is why I think, in all honesty, Tokugawa Ieyasu will not be able to stop the Atilla Subutai meta, and arguably, I think Heraclius is a better pairing for Gorgo than Tokugawa Ieyasu. Because if you pair And if you pair Tokugawa Ieyasu with Hera, I think the whole Mighty Shield stuff, like overlapping one another, there's just so much anti synergy there. So I don't think it will really work. So if you have to choose the right pair for Gorgo, it has to be either Heraclius or Tokugawa Ieyasu. And from what I'm seeing on my screen right here, and you can do this yourself too. Like all of their skill sets out there is public information. I think I would actually prefer Hera, because Hera would take 30% less normal damage, straight up, unconditional, when it's fighting against Attilla Subutai. And is already performing so bad on the garrison reports right now. So if Tokugawa Ieyasu isn't a class better than Hera, I don't think Tokugawa Ieyasu can stop Attilla Subutai, let alone like actually be a better pairing than a Heraclius for infantry garrisons. So yeah, so this is my speculation. Obviously, I'm not an infantry garrison lead. I'm personally a cavalry garrison and rally lead. So I'm just speculating based on the information that is given to us. And really, whatever Tokugawa Ieyasu has could potentially change. But because his set is around cleansing himself, doing a lot of smite damage and mighty shield, and doing 10% more damage, unless this damage comes up to like 20-30%, I don't think there is a way that Tokugawa Ieyasu can be readjusted so that he can beat the 30% normal damage reduction that Hera has when used as a mixed troop, in all honesty. And because Tokugawa Ieyasu can't be paired with Hera because of how like the Mighty Shield resets and everything, in all honesty, I don't see a world where Attilla Subutai rally will be stopped by anything for the next year or so. But yeah, so that's my speculation. I hope you guys actually found this information really helpful. But man, I am kind of disappointed myself, although I'm not a infantry main. I love Tokugawa Ieyasu as a historic figure too. Like I love like the whole Sengoku era and like the story behind it. I'm a Korean, I'm not Japanese, but like I love all the stories and stuff. But to see him come into the game rather disappointing, it's just daunting for me. Like it's really bad. And yeah, like I think infantry's kind of getting that that era where cavalry's actually got, you know, the what was the set of commanders that was released? I think the Belisarius Prime era, where you're getting a set of commanders that seem okay and that is eventually good, but then again not meta breaking enough for you to really anticipate the next commander release, really. But man, yeah, I if you're an infantry garrison leader, and if you think otherwise, just let me know in the down in the comment down below. I think you guys all know this too. And I think Tokugawa Ieyasu is pretty mid, to be really honest. And I think Hera is really good. So I would prefer Hera over Tokugawa Ieyasu under any condition, to be really honest with you. But what do you guys think? Just share me what you think in the comment down below. If you guys want to join my Discord and join the discussion about all the new commanders that are coming to Rise of Kingdoms, please join my Discord from the description down below. And as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye bye.